Hey guys, it's Amy. Welcome back to Too Blessed. It has been a while. It has been a few weeks, probably like a month at least, since my last video. And I'm kind of here today to explain what's been going on because it's been a little crazy in our lives lately. Um, and I actually had filmed a few videos like a month ago. And when I went to download them to my computer, it kept saying the files were all corrupted. So I had I think 3 videos filmed, probably like 8 or 9 different clips, and they were all corrupted. I tried everything I could to recover them, and I just couldn't. So I had some videos that I wanted to get up for you guys, and it just didn't work out. So, and then all the craziness started, and I just have not felt like it and have not had time to do any videos lately. So now I'm feeling better. So that's the good news. But I'm going to tell you, kind of share with you everything that's been going on the last few weeks. So, and actually this probably goes back even longer than the last few weeks, because I have noticed over the last few months, we were talking about it the other day, and I told my husband, probably really since after Christmas, I just have not been feeling good, you know. Just in general, I've just been more tired. I've had more nausea that I've been dealing with, and we just kind of thought it was from my kidneys, because they said, from the kidney failure, and I am on dialysis. If you haven't been around, I'll kind of explain some of the back stuff if you're new here, what's been happening. But I do have kidney failure, and I'm on dialysis. I've been on dialysis since February, my goodness, since November. And then what I was going to say is, right after Christmas, we started doing home dialysis. And like I said, that it kind of coincided with the time that I started feeling not so great. So we really kind of thought that my kidneys were causing the problems. And so we did home dialysis for about 2 months. And towards the end of February, I made a video about this. So if you want to hear all those details, you can go back and watch that one. I think that was the last health update that I did, was talking about how we were not doing home dialysis anymore. But we were having so many problems. And like I said, I was feeling so badly. And we kind of thought it was related to the problems we were having with dialysis. So at the end of February, I started going back to the clinic to do dialysis. And that seemed to be going pretty well. I was struggling with a lot of nausea, and had several episodes of vomiting, even during dialysis. But like I said, I just kind of kept thinking that, during that time we did home dialysis, that I wasn't getting good treatments, and probably the toxins were built up, and that probably had something to do with why I was feeling so badly. So we really didn't think anything else of that. So just to go back into a little bit of the history, in case you are newer here, I've made a lot of videos about all of my different health issues. So I am diabetic. I had diabetic retinopathy in my eyes. I am considered legally blind. That was kind of one of the first issues that cropped up, and then it kind of kept coming one after another. Then we found out that I had what is called gastroparesis. I have made several videos talking about gastroparesis, but basically that is, my stomach is paralyzed, not necessarily completely paralyzed, but my digestion is very slow. And at times it does seem like it kind of just stops, and that's when I get very sick. So for my gastroparesis, I have a gastric stimulator, which is very similar to a pacemaker that someone would have on their heart. But mine, of course, is on my stomach. It has leads that go to the stomach and stimulate, try to stimulate the stomach to move. the main purpose of the gastric stimulator is really just to reduce nausea and vomiting. And that has worked pretty well for me. I've had mine for 4 years, almost exactly 4 years. It was April 1st of 2015 that I received it. So that had worked pretty well. In fact, over the past like 2 years, I really was doing really well. I wasn't vomiting very much at all. I would have nausea here and there, but it really was doing pretty well for me. And actually that night, by the time we got to the hospital, I was honestly feeling a little bit better. I wasn't really vomiting anymore. Still had a little bit of nausea, but not really anything too bad. So they went ahead and admitted me. And I stayed over Thursday, and I think it was Friday that I got out. And they just kind of checked everything out. I didn't really have any more nausea while I was there. So, you know, they checked out my heart. Everything looked good. So we felt relieved at that, of course. And then, so they discharged me. I went home. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it was Friday. I stayed in the hospital 3 times, so I'm getting them confused, but I'm pretty sure it was Friday that we went home that time. And then I kind of did okay for the weekend, and then Sunday, I was sick again. It wasn't as bad as it had been the time before, so we kind of did the same thing. We sort of like waited it out to see what would happen. And then Monday, it ended up, I do dialysis Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Well, Monday morning, the transportation company that we use called me and said they didn't have anyone to bring me to dialysis that day. Like, okay, now what am I supposed to do? So my husband ended up having to leave work, and he was going to just come home and get me, take me to dialysis, and then he was going to go back. But I was really sick. I was pretty miserably sick. And when I got to the dialysis clinic, they were kind of like, we don't know if you're going to make it through dialysis, you know, as sick as you are right now. And so we kind of talked about it for a minute, and we decided that we would just go ahead and go to the hospital. So my husband ended up having to miss work that whole day. He took me back to the hospital again. They admitted me again. And that time, it was the same hospital, but we didn't really have a great experience, to be honest. So because I was getting so sick, my husband had kind of questioned if perhaps the battery in my gastric stimulator had died or was dying, because it had been, I think, 2 years since we had it checked. And at that time, they had said I had 2 years of battery life left, but they weren't sure if it was actually going to last 2 years, like it only might last 18 months or something like that. So, and that thought had not really occurred to me, but my husband thought of it, and he kind of, you know, the more we thought about it, we're like, oh yeah, that's entirely possible. Now, the hospital that I was at, that we went to, is the one where my kidney doctor is, but the surgeon who implanted my gastric stimulator is at a different hospital. And the hospital I was at did not have the equipment. You know, they didn't do anything with gastric stimulators. So they didn't have the equipment or the ability to check it and see if it was working or do anything with it. And they basically told my husband that they were going to treat my kidneys. So they were going to give me dialysis, but they said they were not going to treat me for anything to do with gastroparesis. And that did not make sense, because the reason I came in was because I was vomiting, you know, and they didn't want to give me, there's a couple of medications they could have given me that would help with the motility and things like that. And they just didn't want to do it. And we didn't understand why. That experience with that hospital was not good, was really not good. And I had always had good experiences at that hospital, so it was really disappointing. And then my kidney doctor, which we were not aware when we went, my kidney doctor was on vacation. And so, you know, we had gone to that hospital because it was the one that she was affiliated with. She could come and see me, but she was on vacation, and the doctor that was filling in for her was a rather elderly man, and he was kind of a jerk. He came in to see me, and I'm honestly trying not to cry because I've only had maybe one or two experiences where a doctor said something like hurtful, and so it's a little shocking, kind of, especially when you're not expecting it. You don't know this doctor, you haven't had any experience with them, and then he blurts out something stupid. So, we were kind of talking about my condition, the fact that I was vomiting so much, and he was asking about my kidneys, like, were we planning to do a transplant? And I told him yes, we were kind of working towards that. And he basically said that he wasn't really concerned about my vomiting because in order to get a transplant, I was going to need to lose weight anyway because I was chubby. And I was like, excuse me? I mean, I know I'm overweight. I get that. But, and the transplant team that we had talked to a few years ago when we were starting this process, they had told me that I would need to lose some weight. But actually, since I've started dialysis, they have removed enough fluid that right now, I'm kind of like right at the point where they said I needed to be. I am planning and trying to lose some more weight, but I'm actually right where I need to be in order to be approved for a transplant. And so that's why I was like, you don't even know what you're talking about. And then, I don't know. It felt really weird for a doctor to use the word chubby. Like, to me, chubby seems like a really derogatory term. Like, if he had just said that you're a little bit overweight or you need to lose a little bit of weight or something like that, but just, I don't know, it really bothered me. It probably shouldn't have, but it really did. And then the last thing that happened, well, the last two things that happened when I was in the hospital. So my husband had been trying to set up for me to get an appointment with the doctor, with the surgeon who had placed my stimulator so that we could get it checked. And he finally was able to get them to fit me in on Friday afternoon. And so he had told the hospital that, and they said that they agreed to it, that if I could get discharged like Friday morning so that we could make it to this appointment to get checked. And they said, sure. So what they were going to do is do my dialysis like early in the morning, and then I would be able to get discharged like noon, 1 o'clock, and then my appointment was at like 3 or something like that. So Friday morning, there were a couple of issues. Friday morning, my kidney doctor came in to see me because she was back from vacation that day, and she said that the hospital's computers had crashed in the middle of the night, and they were trying to scramble to get things figured out. They were supposed to come and get me for dialysis at like 6 o'clock, and I think at this point it was 8 and they hadn't come yet. So she was going to go talk to them, see if she could get things straightened out. So they finally came to get me around like 9 or 9:30, something like that. So they took me to dialysis and they went to start getting me hooked up. I have a fistula in my left arm, which is, I've got videos talking about it, but basically, if you're not aware, they created an access in my arm that they use specifically for dialysis. And when they went to access my fistula, there was no blood flow. When they put the needle in, it just hit a clot, and they could like pull out these clots. And normally, when you touch my arm here where the fistula is, you can actually feel the blood pumping through, and it's very strong. Right now, I can't feel anything hardly. It kind of feels like a pulse, but that's about it. So at some point, they had used my fistula on Wednesday, and then so sometime between Wednesday and Friday, my fistula basically had failed. And so so what they had to do is they had to take me to have an emergency procedure done. They actually placed a catheter here in my chest. It has a bandage on it, so I'm not going to show you anything gross. So this bandage is just covering it and protecting it, and it has these two little tubes, so all they have to do is hook up the two lines to those two tubes. So had to have that placed as an emergency procedure, so of course that took a little while. Then they took me back and did dialysis, but because of all these issues, it ended up, I think I didn't get back to my room until it was probably after 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, my husband was waiting because we were supposed to get discharged. We let them know, like, hey, we need to get discharged, like, now because we have to go. And it seemed like they were just dragging their feet. We ended up getting out way too late because I think we got out of the hospital like 15 minutes before my appointment was supposed to be. But we were in Knoxville, and it would have taken probably well more than 30 minutes to get to the other hospital on the other side of town. So we missed that appointment. So we set up an appointment. My husband was able to call them and kind of, explain to them sort of the emergency, the urgency of the situation. And so we set up another appointment for Tuesday the following week. And we were just we were just hoping and praying that I was going to be able to make it through that weekend until Tuesday without having to go back to the hospital. And I did, fortunately. So then what happened is on Tuesday, my sister, who lives in Knoxville, was going to take me to this appointment. So Monday night, my husband took me to her house. I spent the night there, and then she took me to my appointment. And Tuesday, when I woke up, I was throwing up. It wasn't actually really bad, but I was throwing up, and I threw up the whole time I was in the doctor's office. So they tested. Yes, the stimulator was completely dead, not just low. It was completely dead. So they went ahead and scheduled me for the procedure to get the battery changed. So that was on Tuesday. The procedure was going to be the following Wednesday, so a week from then. So I went back to my sister's house after that appointment, and she had to go to work, so I just stayed at her house, and I just was throwing up. It just wasn't great. So when my husband got off work, he came to get me, and we decided to go back to the hospital, but this time we were going to go to the hospital where my surgeon was, who did the gastric stimulator, because that way, just in case I couldn't get discharged in time, I didn't want to miss, having that procedure done, of course. So we went to that hospital. I did get admitted again. And I'm trying to think how that time I got discharged on Saturday, I believe it was. Yes, I got discharged on Saturday. And then again, we just had to kind of hope and pray that I could make it until Wednesday to get my procedure done. Now this hospital was amazing. They really listened to us. They listened to what I needed. And of course, since they had doctors that do the gastric stimulator there, they were much more familiar with the gastroparesis and the best ways to treat it. So I really got good treatment while I was there. They, in fact, were able to balance some things out. The week before, when I had been discharged from the other hospital, I was just feeling horrible. I was dizzy. I could hardly stand up or walk. If I had to move around the house, I was, gripping onto furniture and trying not to fall down. And it just, something just wasn't right. And at this other hospital, they told me that a lot of things, like my electrolytes were off, my potassium was very, very low, which generally in a dialysis patient, a lot of times your potassium is high because it's filtered out by your kidneys. And, that's one of the things you have to kind of restrict in your diet and things like that. But I think, the combination of me being so sick and not being able to keep anything down, My potassium was low. I think they said my magnesium was low. They ended up actually giving me some fluid because I was dehydrated. And they just, they got all of those things straightened out. So when I got discharged from the hospital on Saturday, I was actually feeling really great. They sent me home on the same medication that they had me on in the hospital. And it's kind of a medication that I don't normally take it. It does have some kind of dangerous side effects, but we, discussing it with the doctor, of course, we decided that, taking it for those few days, the benefits were going to outweigh any risk. So, really then for those few days, I really did great. I was extremely careful with my diet, which I always am, but I basically lived on like Jell-O and mashed potatoes for those few days. I didn't do much more than that. I wasn't, sometimes protein can be hard for my stomach to digest. Of course, like fruits and vegetables can be hard. So I was just like, I'm not going to try anything that might take a chance of setting off my stomach. So I was just super, super cautious, taking those medications, staying on, like a strict schedule with them. And I made it through. I got my procedure done on Wednesday. So today is Saturday. I'm not sure when you're going to see this video, but today is Saturday. I just had the procedure done on Wednesday. And honestly, ever since then, I have felt amazing. Thursday and Friday, I felt like a new person. I had energy. I had absolutely zero nausea those 2 days. Absolutely none. It was like heaven. I'm still being a little careful about what I'm eating because I'm still healing. My belly is still pretty swollen. It's a little painful. It's not bad. In fact, the pain is not as bad as when I initially had that stimulator placed. It's really not bad. I'm not even taking prescription pain medicine. I took prescription pain medicine the very first day, like after the procedure was done, and then overnight that night. And then I don't like taking pain medicine. So, since then I've just been taking Tylenol, and that's been just fine. So now today, it's Saturday. I did wake up a little bit nauseous today. But I have a few things that I usually check when I'm feeling nauseous because other things can do that. So I checked my blood sugar, which was okay. But then I checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was super, super high. That top number was like 199. And we have noticed that a lot of times if my blood pressure is high, that I will feel nauseous. Last night, I had dialysis yesterday, and last night my blood pressure was actually like low. And then this morning it had jumped up and was really high. So once I took my blood pressure medicine, then within like an hour or so, I was feeling a lot better. So I think that little episode of nausea, I think, was just from the blood pressure. So I think that's my update. I think that's my entire update for now. If you're new here, I would love to have you subscribe. And thanks for watching this video, guys. And I will see you in the next one.